Alrighty everyone, happy Sunday everybody around the world out there. We have a lot of things to talk about when it comes to Indiana Jones 5, the Dial of Destiny, the future of the Indiana franchise, what Kathleen Kennedy had to say, and exactly how it revolves around James Mangold, Harrison Ford, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and two of the new characters in Indy 5, Helena and Teddy. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and let's jump right into this. Now, we know that Kathleen Kennedy is very busy working on The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, two of which, by the way, are shows that are 100% in her creative power. She's working with John Watts for Skeleton and Leslie Headland for Acolyte, one of which, being Skeleton Crew, is going to be Marvelized with a mixture of themes of The Goonies, meets Stranger Things, meets Star Wars, and then you got The Acolyte, which has been described by Leslie Headland herself, that it's going to be a mixture of Kill Bill, meets Frozen, meets The Matrix, meets Mission Impossible. Now, on top of all of this, what's really intriguing has a lot to do with Indy 5, and specifically what Kathleen Kennedy had to say about an Indy 5 sequel, aka Indy 6, and exactly what's going on with that. Now, we know that behind closed doors, there were early developments of an Indiana Jones series that were in their actual works that got shut down, and it was apparently going to revolve around the character of Helena. There was a lot of back and forth through that creative process. It never really got that far into development, but it was shut down just before they shut down Willow Season 2. But let's get into this. Now, with Kathleen Kennedy continuing to promote Indy 5 ahead of its June 30th release date, she was eventually questioned about Indy 5 as a sequel, or should I say Indy 6, where she delivered the following to fans. I can say this, myself and James have worked so hard on this one. Harrison did a phenomenal job, and Phoebe is the true star of this film. She really lights the room for this entry, and so we have been holding conversations daily about a sequel without Harrison, and perhaps without Indiana. We are developing it, but right now it's mostly just conversations. It is happening. We don't have a story just yet. Helena has so much story left to tell after this one that we could really expand her character. Much like Star Wars, it doesn't always need to be about the Skywalkers. So with Indiana Jones, it would be a proper way for us to hand down the mantle to someone else like Helena, take on the weight of the story, or perhaps even Teddy. It's something that we talk about every single day, and it's all about idling in and making the right plot available. Now, I want to pause here quick. Now, this is where Kathleen Kennedy gets it all wrong. This is in no way even close to Star Wars. So she's saying that moving on from Indiana Jones to embrace a sequel is perfectly okay because they already did that with Star Wars. The thing is with Star Wars is you have so many ways to tell new stories that you don't need to focus on the Skywalkers because let's face it, guys, the brand is not called Star Wars Skywalker or just flat out Skywalkers. You have this brand, Indiana Jones, which has his literal name as the brand. You cannot divert from that. You cannot dodge that. You cannot change that. And so embracing a sequel without Harrison Ford, without let alone Indiana Jones as a character, is just blasphemy. It really is. Now, when you look at stuff like this by Kathleen Kennedy about how they've been discussing an Indiana Jones 5 sequel and how they would like to handle, a scenario where they can bring down the mantle down to one of the new characters like Helena or Teddy or somebody new, perhaps, that we've never seen before just yet. And this just goes to show you that it is somewhat getting the Rey treatment, where you do have kind of what she's talking about here. I think that what she was alluding to was the Rey film, where you're getting this Rey movie now, where basically it's all about Rey Skywalker so far, and handling the Skywalker lineage and stuff like that. But moving to the next thing. This is where it gets really complicated and bad. Now, she states whether the sequel actually turns into a movie or a TV show is completely uncertain right now for us here at Lucasfilm. I can't say if James will return or be back for a sequel or not, but I can confirm that Harrison is done. He's not returning. He felt his time was well served and that it is a perfect end to his story. There just hasn't been much left to talk about with Harrison. How we create a sequel for Indy 5 without Dr. Jones is the true challenge, and how we can honor his legacy and discoveries can be a part of the story that still keeps his legacy and spirit alive for the other characters' adventures that we have introduced in Indy 5. Characters like Helena or Teddy have so much space to explore in a sequel that we couldn't pass up that opportunity. We have a big fan base for the 5th film. Do you really, Kathleen Kennedy? She states, it's so fun developing a 6th one, or perhaps even in the form of a series or a movie, whatever it may be for Disney Plus, whatever it turns out, we're all in for it. I am just astounded that she says that there's a large fan base for the 5th film, that there's a lot of supporters for it, and yet even the critics that got a chance to see this at Cannes Film Festival really admitted that the magic is gone, the thrill is non-existent, it's completely absent, and it's basically an empty shell of what it once was. That's essentially the sum of what Indy 5 is all about. It's an empty shell of what it once was, and there's no spirit inside of that shell. It's sad to say this, but this is the day and age that we live in, where you have a production company like Lucasfilm that's being run by Kathleen Kennedy still to this day. Of course, Disney executives want her out, and there is a strategy to get her out, depending on how bad Indy 5 performs. That still remains intact. But the biggest concern is, what does Disney really consider bad statistics as far as box office returns come from? That's the biggest question of all. And who are they really looking at when it comes to fan reception? Are they looking at the actual indie fans? Or are they looking at just regular moviegoers that know nothing about the Indiana Jones franchise, that just want to see this movie as a popcorn flick? Who are they really going to be looking at, right, to determine the fan engagement levels? Well, the sad thing is, it's really hard to tell. You really can't differentiate, that people that go ahead and see a movie like that. So, interestingly enough, she does say that an Indy 5 sequel is in the talks. It is happening, apparently, and whether or not it becomes a TV show or a movie is something on the table. Something that they are still discussing to this day. And I say this: toss the idea of an Indy 6. We don't need it. We don't want it. All we wanted was a proper send-off for Indiana Jones, a proper introduction again of an older variant of Short Round, aka Shorty, portrayed by Quan. That would have been a nice little send-off there, maybe some of the other characters thrown into the mix. And we've seen other production companies that tried to make that work with past franchises, and it didn't really work well. And so, this is a prime example that they are picking and choosing what works best for their overall agenda and their overall approach to really just dismantling our pop culture favorites. And it's really a true thing. It's actually happening. So guys, I would love to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.